Hello, good morning. It is Wednesday, the 19th of April, 2023. I hope you can hear me okay. I hope you can see me okay. Vendetta just says too early. Fair enough. I just had to race to get here. I've just got here just in the nick of time. But I had time to make myself a morning brew of tea. Obviously not whiskey. So today we've got a lot of things to talk about. And obviously if you want to put a message in the chat talking about whatever you want to talk about, you might be able to derail me and take me to a different place that I was not intending to talk about. But there's a couple of things I want to mention today. First of all, I was going to discuss on Monday the Grand National, because 3 horses died in this year's Grand National, and I was going to have a bit of a conversation about that, as Grand National takes place in my home city of Liverpool, in Aintree. It would have been an interesting discussion, I'm sure, but I think we've missed that. The horses bolted, so to speak. But not very impressed. Not very impressed that 3 horses died for horse racing, which is entertainment. 3 horses died for our entertainment. If you do that in a movie, if you throw some horses off a cliff because you can't be bothered spending money on special effects, you get fined a lot of money. A lot of money. If you have a horse and you just decide to break its leg for no reason, you get fined a lot of money. So there's 2 possible solutions here. That we could either just have flat racing, so the horses aren't jumping over hedges, which causes the bulk of these injuries that lead to them being euthanized, or we can have a situation where the owners and the jockeys are also euthanized when a horse is. Anyway, moving on. So last night it was revealed quite late at night. It was a bit of a, it's one of those where it's kind of like, it's kind of good news in a way, but also not really the news that we wanted. Fox has settled, the Fox News, Faux News, the news outlet in America, which is the equivalent of the Sun newspaper in the UK, just as disgusting, just as owned by Rupa Murdoch, and just as causing many of the problems in society by creating problems that they say they're going to fix, and then they never fix them. And they're just basically hate sites. Essentially, I know one's a newspaper and the other one is a TV channel, but both hate sites. We now have our own hate sites in the UK on the telly. We have Talk TV, which is owned by Rupert Murdoch, I think, and also GB News, Gammon Box News. So we have a couple of hate channels on our TV with a bunch of Lord Haw-Haws, modern day Lord Haw-Haws, basically, spouting a load of nonsense. So, but Fox has settled this Dominion lawsuit for a record it's probably not a record, but a massive $787 million. That's $750,000. So, but the reason why we're all a little bit like, shine on, that's not great, is because we wanted to see these Fox News anchors, got to be very careful with that word, like Tucker Carlson, got to be careful with that word as well, and Laura Ingraham. It's Ingraham, but it's pronounced Ingram. She's an insult to Grahams everywhere, a bit like Graham Linehan, who wrote Father Ted, Black Books, The IT Crowd, and then went mad. And Sean Hannity, got another one. I think it's the channel that used to have Glenn Beck. Do you remember him? Yeah, he's still floating around, I don't think he's on the channel anymore. But essentially, what these people did, trying to keep it for PG today, not too many swears. What they did was, after the 2020 election, which was won by President Joe Biden, they knew that Trump didn't win. They knew that Trump had lost. And yet, they kept on doing shows. We know this because of private conversations that came out in Discovery. So they were texting each other saying, we know this is a load of nonsense, but we need to keep saying it to keep the shareholders happy. So it would have been nice to see those people on the stand defending their actions, actually doing having to tell the truth for once in their miserable, godforsaken lives. But unfortunately, it wasn't to be. However, this is still a massive chunk out of Murdoch's back pocket. I mean, it's not a devastating blow. It's not a killer blow, I should say, but it is. Pardon me. It is making things a little bit more difficult for very old Rupert Murdoch. I'm sorry about this. Got a tickle in my throat. Before I move on, I'll just jump into the comments. And I'm sure you don't want to hear me coughing anymore. Hang on one sec. You know when you got like a tickle in your throat? Oh, that's not good. I need to just have a bit more tea. Bloody hell. All right, okay. We have City Life 2050 saying, morning all. I had a couple of friends who used to write for City Life magazine in Manchester. They were cool. One of them got sacked for calling Mick Hucknall a TWAT. That actually happened. Got a large coffee in my hand, says Nick and Diff. Make sure you hit the like button, folks, says Reagan Elite. I'm going to put it over onto this screen here so I'm not like leaning forward and peering over my reading. These aren't reading glasses. Not there yet. Will be soon. Lee, my friend, had to put food at his dog. Okay, I don't know what that means. Thanks, David. Lee says, yes, I thought your mic was low, but I realised I had the volume down. Whoopsies! Yeah, before you complain on the chat about any technical problems, because obviously I'm producing this myself, as I'm presenting, I'm reading your comments and thinking what to say next. So, yeah, check your system before you say anything about mine, because it does go, oh God. Because I've done that before where I've just rabbited on for like 5 minutes and then I've looked at the comments and all the comments are like, sound, your sound is off. Audio, Graham, your sound. Yeah, but yeah, it's a bit of a problem. Can't bear the Grand National now, just looks barbaric, says Nick and Diff. Yeah, I can't disagree. You know, I think this is another thing where I've actually come round to other people's point of view on it. It's indefensible. That number of horses, 3 horses being killed in a day, in one race for the entertainment. No, I'm not happy with that. And you know, good on the climate the animal rights protesters who tried to disrupt the race, who then somehow got the blame for horses dying in the race that they were trying to stop. They didn't race the horses around the... I was having a discussion as well about the protest at the Crucible earlier this week, in which someone climbed a just stopped oil protester, climbed on top of a snooker table at the Crucible and threw orange powder over himself. And I thought it was great. So it was the most interesting thing that's ever happened in the history of snooker. But also, I mean, it got on the front page of at least 4 national newspapers. That's what we've got to do. We've got to disrupt. There's no point in saying, oh, please, will you stop being horrible? Please stop being horrible. Stop doing nasty things. Don't stop taking our rights away. Oh, we've lost our freedom of movement. Oh, I'm very upset about that. Doesn't do anything. We know this because a lot of people watching this would have been involved in the Remain movement. We had over 1 million people marching in London on 3 separate occasions. And nothing came of that. But Mike Galsworthy and Femi Olawale will argue that we stopped them having a no-deal Brexit, which is good, I guess. That's a step in the right direction, but we're still living with the effects of Brexit. Just to seamlessly segue into what I want to talk about next. Food prices have gone up at the fastest rate for 45 years. That's before I was born. That is literally since 1978. That is before I was born. Food prices going up at the fastest speed. Now, in 2016, there was a referendum for whether Britain should stay in the EU or not. And the baddies won, essentially. It was like the end of Chinatown. The baddies won. And they were paid off to do what they did and disrupt the referendum and cheat and lie and do whatever they could. They put a lie on the side of a bus. This is Rishi Sunak saying that we should have... Rishi Sunak, who was a Brexiteer, I think, from the start, from the get-go. I mean, he's one of the richest people in Britain, so why wouldn't you be? He's saying that people should learn maths. And I'm like, why doesn't your scumbag party learn maths so they can learn that actually we make 2 billion, we made 2 billion a week profit from our membership of the EU. So putting being in the EU costs us £350 million a week. No, that was an absolute gargantuan lie on every level. Our membership of the EU just made us money. But the scumbags in charge that wanted desperately to fill our rivers and streams and ponds and watercourses and reservoirs and shorelines with raw sewage, knew they wouldn't get away with that if we were still in the EU. And that's a major reason why we left. They wanted a bonfire of regulations. Remember those expressions? A bonfire of red tape. Go to the border and see it. There's been a bonfire of red tape while everyone's getting their fingerprints scanned to leave the country now, like common criminals. Well, like going to any other country in the world that isn't in Europe these days. But, you know, people aren't to know that. Those people don't go anywhere further than Scunthorpe, I guess, these days. Anyway, but like the idea of the bonfire of regulations wasn't for us. It wasn't for the little people. It was for the multimillionaires who are laughing their sick arses off now because they can pump as much of their own effluent into the watercourses and your effluent as well and get away with it because no one's going to stop them. Great. What a great deal. So yeah, £350 million to the NHS, but also at the same time, the Express newspaper expressly put on its Express front cover that Brexit would lower food prices. Something that was backed up in speeching terms, words coming out of his horrible face from the haunted pencil that is Jacob Rees-Mogg, who said that leaving the EU would result in cheaper food. And yet, here we have food prices rise at fastest rate for 45 years. Oh yeah, and the UK inflation is down to just 10%. Wow, didn't see that coming. Marina is going on GBBs. Oh, I'll have to text her, tell her, what are you doing? No, also Patsy Stevenson, who was the woman who was detained by the police at the Sarah Everard vigil. She's been on GBBs a few times, and she was asking the question before doing it, like, should I really go on GBBs? But there's a point that someone made to me once. It's like, you know, it's all very well preaching to the choir. Hi. But if you really want to get your message across, you kind of need to go onto the enemy media and get your message across using that, I guess. I was talking to someone who writes a column for The Sun newspaper. The Sun, yeah. And when I asked why, the response was that because of the particular column that they write, it's some information that people who don't have much money wouldn't be able to access through normal means. Okay, I'm trying to be a bit vague to who it is, but you might be able to guess. But essentially his reasoning, which is fair enough, is that people who read The Sun aren't going to be the kind of people who can afford to pay for private consultation for X, Y, Z, and so writing a column in the newspaper, that kind of gets around it. If it was all about one topic in particular, then I'll probably let him off the hook, but sometimes he writes about things that have got nothing to do with his area of expertise. He's just having a little bitch. Anyway, moving on. Anyone who spends time with horses will know that appalling crime that was. Patrick, you're right. And that one of the arguments against this, keep getting drawn back into the Grand National here. One of the arguments against it is, but if we didn't have horse racing, then horses wouldn't exist. And I'm like, what? I'm pretty sure people would still want horses. It's like saying, we don't have book festivals, then books won't exist. I think they will. I think there'll still be books. People would still want books, even if you didn't have festivals or the Booker Prize. You can't get rid of the Booker Prize. There'll be no books. You can't get rid of the Pulitzer Prize. There'll be no newspapers. There'll be no journals. There'll be no websites with the news on. It's a bit mad, isn't it? Like, okay, yeah, I understand that horses are bred. A particular type of horse is bred to be fast and race and jump over obstacles. Breeding a horse for it to have to be killed in front of spectators. They put a little tent up, but come on. We're better than this, aren't we? By now? Come on. It's 2023. Let's sort that out. Murdoch was going to be fined 1.5 billion. That's from Vendetta. Yep. But the thing is, the Minion have done the calculations, I think, and what they've seen is, even if they win the trial, which they probably would do, there will be appeals, and they wouldn't get any money until after the appeals, and then the amount that gets fine to Fox and to Murdoch would be decreased because of various mitigations and things. So I think rather than having to wait for ages and then get about 700 million at the end of it in 3, 4, maybe 5 years' time, they just went for a quickie and said, look, just give us the money and they can run with that. But it's a good big but this. There's other companies also suing Fox for the same thing. For lying about the election. So Dominion make the voting machines that Fox said were tainted, that were interfered with, that gave the wrong outcome because their man didn't win. And yeah, and that kind of brings me to something I just want to have a quick chat about, which is cancel culture. I know this seems a bit random, like, you know, cancel culture. Where did that come from? Is that in the news? Well, it's always in the news these days. And you know, I was listening to the Rolling Stones in the car, as sometimes I do, and I thought, isn't it mad that like the songs come up, you know, with explicit at the end of it, and it's like, oh, we need to protect the children from a swear word. It's like this is an American invention, and it's a bit mad because I noticed that Supergrass have an explicit warning on "All Right" by Supergrass. If you remember any swearing in that, I don't, but apparently, yeah, there is swearing in it because in it, Gaz Coombs, the lead singer, used the word fag, F-A-G, fag, which in England means a cigarette. In the UK, it means a cigarette. In America, it means it's a derogatory term for someone who's homosexual. So it was flagged up, explicit. So you can set your playlist to not play explicit songs. So these songs won't come on when you're in the car. And today I was listening to Suede in the car. I was listening to the B-Sides and Rarities album, Sci-Fi Lullabies. And there was a song on that. And I was listening to it, and it came up as explicit. I'm like, what has this got in it? It's got no swear words. It's got nothing about pooing out paracetamol on an escalator. It wasn't that song. I was like, how is this explicit? And I looked up the lyrics, and he mentions getting a gun. So they want to censor songs that mention the word gun in America, but not actual AR-15s that destroy children at a vast rate of knots. Like the most effective killing machine that a civilian can realistically have in the world right now is an AR-15. And they've been used in nearly every single major massacre that you've heard of in the news over the last 20 years since they were unbanned. Because they were banned for a while, quite rightly, because they only exist to kill people. But now they've been unbanned. Meanwhile, in the States, there was a young black lad who knocked at the wrong door and got shot in the head. And then he fell on the floor and got shot again. Yeah. Wow. And then he had to go and knock on people's doors to get some help. And 3 of the people didn't answer the door. And the last person who did get help would only help him if he put his hands up. Also, a woman got shot dead in the passenger seat of a car, I think, because the person driving, her friend driving, drove into the wrong driveway. This is the same country where Kinder Eggs, haggis, and Stilton are banned. Yeah, Stilton cheese. It's not like a rock band from the 70s called Stilton. And it got me thinking about cancel culture. It got me thinking, like, for all of my life, the people trying to cancel stuff, the people with the list of video nasties, the 88 VHS video nasties that you're not allowed to have a look at. Mary Whitehouse trying to ban Tom and Jerry off the telly because it was too violent. And she thought little kids would watch Tom and Jerry and they'll tie a rock to their friend and push them off a cliff or put them in the oven, or I don't know, it's too violent. Cartoon. Cancel culture. That is cancel culture. All my life, songs that these people wanted to ban. Didn't want them on the radio. Didn't want children to be able to buy a record or CD with this song on because it said the S word once. Oh, we had to put a sticker on it. Parental advisory, explicit lyrics. Explicit. Yeah. To stop people rapping about things that, you know, kill people and concentrating on actually killing people instead. And now we're seeing this in America and in the UK with cancel culture. And it's always on the right for people trying to ban transgender people from being teachers. Drag shows. Books. Just books. Any old books that we don't like the look of. We want them banned from not just schools. Not just schools. But public libraries. Public libraries. What the... Seriously, you want to ban books from public libraries? Yeah. Do you know what? If you don't like these books, don't read them. It's a bit like if you don't like gay marriage, don't marry a bloke. Or if you're a woman, don't marry a woman. I just don't get this whole thing. We have to ban this. We have to ban this terrible, terrible thing. And it's like, are you like they're banning books for a generation that has access to the internet? Could you just think for a moment how bonkers that is? If the idea that censorship worked, if the idea that by playing violent video games or playing or watching violent movies that made people violent was true, we would have seen in the last 30 years a massive rise around the world in violent crime. We haven't. We've seen the absolute opposite of that. We have seen a year-on-year decrease in violent crime around the world overall. Maybe people are fulfilling their violent desires by playing GTA 5. I don't know. But the fact remains that the people who are trying to cancel things are always on the right. Always. The people boycotting in terms of, like, I don't want to buy anything that J.K. Rowling makes anymore, that's on the left. Okay, fair enough. Or centre-left, or whatever you want to call it. But that's new. That's kind of like, well, you know, why should I support someone whose views do not align any way, shape, or form with myself? I don't want to make a law against J.K. Rowling's novels, books, TV shows, films, whatever. I don't want there to be. I don't want those books to be banned. I'm not calling for that. I just don't want to buy it myself. I don't want to give her money. Okay. And then people go, you're cancel. That's cancel culture. You're cancelling people. And then these people who are being cancelled, who are invariably right wing, they'll go on the talk shows. They'll write a book about how they're being cancelled. They get front page of a newspaper. I've been cancelled. I've been told I couldn't speak. But you got two different things here. You got the right wing trying to use the law to ban VHS tapes, to ban violent video games, to ban books they don't like, to ban drag shows. I mean, drag shows, not just drag queens talking to children, which is, I mean, bonkers when you consider that pantomimes exist and they involve a man dressed as a woman and have done for centuries, literally for centuries. Oh my God. But, you know, if a child sees a man dressed as a woman, they might start having ideas about doing it themselves. I don't know, because of all the harm that would cause society if they did, which is none. But this is actually, they want to cancel drag shows in a bar where adults go and they're having a laugh with a drag artist. And it is just mind blowing. But the big difference is, on the left, it's a boycott. It is just like, I'm not going to buy this thing. On the right, they want to change the law. They want to stop. I don't want to read J.K. Rowling, for instance, right? I'm not going to stop you from reading it. I might say to you, I'd rather you didn't, but I'm not going to ban those books. I'm not going to propose that we do ban those books. I wouldn't support that. I wouldn't, even though I don't like her, and there's other people I don't like. I don't think that those things should be banned. I don't think that Sun newspaper should be banned. I'm happy to boycott it, as we do in the great city of Liverpool, where you can't get a copy of The Sun for love nor money in any independent retailers. Maybe in W.H. Smith, because they're evil. But, you know, everywhere else, they don't sell The Sun. They just don't sell it in news agents and stuff. Because why would you? It's an absolute scumbag newspaper that denigrated the entire population of Liverpool, which is disgraceful. Anyway. So this is a huge difference. And yet we're the ones who get called cancel culture. And as I mentioned the other day, and I think someone corrected me, I think it was Goebbels who said this, accuse your enemy of that which you are guilty of. And this is what they do across the board. And we've got to start picking this up. And when people are being interviewed, calling people out. Which is why it's so great when we do get people like Marina Purkis and Femi Olawale on the telly, so they can actually pick apart this nonsense that people are talking. But I would like to see a better class of interviewer on TV, not just pundit, but interviewer that knows, has the intelligence, has the education to know when a guest is lying to them, when a guest has made up a statistic or is bending a statistic to their will. I want them to call them out and say, you just lied. And leave it hanging. Oh, well, but no. I want you to apologise to our viewers for telling that lie. This interview is not going to continue until you apologise right now and say, I'm sorry for lying. And if they don't, terminate the interview. We give these scumbags enough airtime as it is. We don't need to give them any more. And then they're chucked out the studio or they storm out in protest. And you're just left with a sensible person from the left, from the centre, an environmentalist, a scientist, perhaps, someone who cares about freedom and liberty and the future of the planet. And you just talk to them. With no comeback from anyone else interrupting them and saying, well, I studied debating at Oxford and I would like to make this big point now, which makes no sense to anyone, but it sounds good because I got a posh accent and you have to listen to me. Painful. Absolutely painful. America's sick, says Patrick. Yeah, it's a bit. Brie and Camembert also banned America is racist. Yeah, true. There was an explosion at the cheese factory. Yeah, all that was left was debris. Okay. Not going to tell. Do you know who monitors cheese coming into America and make sure the wrong cheese doesn't come in? It's the FBI. Okay, I'm just losing viewers here. I can see the viewing ratings going down. I'll ban Nazism like Germany did. Yeah, okay, I'll give that because that's an absolute extreme. I would just deem Nazism as a terrorist organization, which are already banned. So I don't understand why, when we have a violent white right-wing extremist, that's not seen as terrorism. The guy who murdered Joe Cox was a terrorist, was a right-wing Brexit-voting terrorist. That's what he was. He was, and that's already a prescribed organisation. So yeah, I mean, I would go along with that, but I would just simply include far-right groups as terrorist organisations, which some are, which is fair enough. Rowling is a talented hack, though. Yeah, she did rip off the worst witch, something rotten, didn't she? The right seem to hate everything just because it's different. Yeah, I mean, the right... They've done like studies, haven't they, on neuroscientists have done studies on right-wing brain and left-wing brain. I know things aren't binary and everything's a spectrum, but generally speaking, left-wing brains are more motivated by kindness and love, and right-wing brains are more motivated by fear. So it's all fear of, oh, what if a drag queen talks to me? What if someone who's non-binary teaches my children and then they become non-binary and I won't know whether to call them he or she? Okay. Is that the biggest problem you got in your life right now? Because the rest of us can't afford to turn the heating on and it's April and we're absolutely freezing in our basements because we can't afford to turn the heating on. Thanks for that, government. 13 years of Tory mismanagement of the population, management of the economy and the population, I guess. Don't solve the problem, blame something else and then ban it. Indeed, diversity of opinions is important. Left and right, cancel culture. No, but Guardian, that's my point. Like, I don't disagree with someone who is on the right and doesn't like a particular author. Say they don't like Salman Rushdie, for instance. I don't know. Maybe they took offense at the Satanic Verses back in the 1980s. Fair enough, right? As long as you don't attack the poor guy, you can not buy his books, you can not read his books. That's fine. I'm not bothered. But don't say that the government needs to ban his books. That is where the line has to be drawn. And I don't see that on the left. I just don't see people saying that J.K. Rowling's work should be banned. That people say you shouldn't spend money on that stuff. And yeah, okay, fair enough. It's really interesting. There's going to be a new Harry Potter TV series, which I predict is going to be a bit crap. They've ordered 10 seasons. I don't know how they're going to get the kids to be in them and stay in them for 10 years. And surely by the time they're 23, at the end of the run, they're going to look 23 and not kids like they're supposed to be in the books. And it's people like, why? We had the Harry Potter films like 20 years ago. Why do we need, like, seriously, the last one only came out in, 2011? So what's that, 11 years ago or something? Like, why do we need these this TV series? Well, it's quite simple, because the main guy who plays Harry Potter, Daniel Radcliffe, and the main character who played Hermione, Emma Watson, both hate J.K. Rowling, and they won't do any more J.K. Rowling stuff, so they won't make a movie of The Cursed Child, for instance. If they do, it won't have Daniel Radcliffe in it. If it does, it won't have Emma Watson in it, because they really, really strenuously disagree with J.K. Rowling's horrible stance on trans people, who she thinks they shouldn't exist. She absolutely hates them. And people go, where's the evidence? She hates them. And I'm like, literally, there is now 3, maybe 4 years worth of tweets and articles and interviews leading up to the point last year in which she said that we can't presume innocence of certain groups. Now, she was talking about trans people, but imagine she was talking about black people when she said that, eh? Have a think. Have a think when she says we can't presume innocence of certain groups, black people. Yeah. She didn't think how people would have responded to that. Yeah. That's how bad it's got. So I'm not going to have an argument with anyone now about J.K. Rowling, because this isn't what the show's about. But what my point was going to be today is just we need to, first of all, call out the cancel culture on the right and call it. That's a term that they've made up. Okay, yeah, that's what they are. Cancel culture. I mean, in Florida, they're trying to ban Disneyland, for Christ's sake. Evangelicals in the US says Harry Potter should be banned because it's satanic. I know. Bless them. Just to note, these neuroscience papers about right-wing, left-wing are mostly correlational. Correlation is not necessarily causation. All right. I said generally. I did say it was a. I did try and qualify it as much as I possibly can. I know nothing's black and white in this universe. A, I want to ban this book. B, have you read it? No. A, but it needs to be banned. Yeah. It's painful, isn't it? Just because right-wing people seem to have bigger amygdalae, I'm probably saying that completely wrong, doesn't necessarily mean that they are driven by fear. Attempting to imply a connection is little better than phrenology, which is the study of your brain's lumps in your head or something, to decide what your personality is, I think, which is a bit like horoscopes in a way, or reading tea leaves. The Freckled Puny says, those complaining about cancel culture will complain that a student union has protested against a right-wing hack appearing at their university, the same hack who has a newspaper column, books, etc., etc. Nick and Diff is putting a hand up saying, yep, another person who has zero knowledge or interest in Harry Potter. GTA 3 is like being in a crime syndicate. It's like the Tories. You'll love it. Yeah. I saw that as a Marina Perkins special, which is fantastic. But Marina's doing really well at the moment. She hosted a show on LBC the weekend before last, and she's looking into more and more TV appearances, and she's really, really good at it. So I want more of our team on the TV. Putting things to right. She did an interview recently with Nick Ferrari, who's just the worst gammon ever. I can't wait till Friday because there's going to be a big climate protest in London. There's going to be a lot of disruption, and just you can smell the sizzling gammon from Nick Ferrari. Nick Ferrari's fury already a few days in advance, so that'll be worth looking out for. But she was up against Nick Ferrari, and he said, would you put us through a referendum, all that again? And she was like, yeah, I would, because Brexit is destroying our country. But also, I thought afterwards, bloody you scumbag. I hate the fact that they go, the whole Brexit thing, it was so awful. You wanted it, Nick Ferrari and all your privately educated rich mates. You wanted Brexit because you knew it would make the rich richer and the poor poorer, which is exactly what it's done. Don't complain that, it was a horrible process. Yeah, it was, that you created. And now our generation, and the generations below us, we're going to have to fix this mess. And it might take us the rest of our lives. While he swans off on, in his retirement to his Costa del Sol house, that's fine for him. He's a millionaire. He was born rich. The rest of us? Come on. Anyway, right, so I need to wrap it up there because it is 7 minutes past 10. I have gone on a bit, and I'm sure you wanted to switch over to LBC and listen to James O'Brien, but I will return at 12 o'clock for Safe for Work Prime Minister's Questions. I might have a special guest with me this week. You never know. So stay tuned for that. If you're not already subscribed to this channel, please subscribe and hit the bell notification icon, which will allow you to be notified whenever a new video goes up, or whenever we go live, which we will do at 12 o'clock today for the first Prime Minister's Questions in a few weeks. Who could have foreseen something designed to remove an entire tranche of human rights could have had such far-reaching consequences? That's from Bad Bones 777. Yeah, indeed. Patrick McCarthy saying it's time for James O'Brien now. All right, mate. I'll take the hint. I'll be back at 12, and then tomorrow at 9:30, Phil Morehouse is here for another Morning Brew with Phil. And obviously two very different styles of doing this show, but essentially it's the same. We wake up in the morning, we make ourselves a cup of tea, although Phil doesn't drink tea, so it's probably a bad name for the show, and we get to have a little bit of a discussion about what's happening. So I hope you're enjoying this format. Let us know in the comments if you've got any suggestions of how we could improve things, how we can make things better, how we can make things more or less groovy. And until 12 o'clock today, I will say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.